Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to get into the real science behind weight loss and why that old advice to just eat less, move more has failed so many of us. So let's just start with the question that I bet you've asked yourself a million times, right? After a really frustrating week of trying to do everything right, dieting, exercising, and the number on the scale just doesn't move. Why is this so ridiculously hard? Well, according to sports medicine physician Dr. Paul Mason, the problem isn't you. It's not a lack of effort. He basically says the issue is the advice itself. It's an approach that, for decades, has pretty much set people up to fail. Okay, so first things first, let's completely dismantle the central myth that has made millions of people blame themselves for their struggles with weight, the calorie lie. You know the one, the old calories in, calories out model. It sounds so simple, but man, it's unforgiving. It tells us that if we can't lose weight, it's our fault. It's a personal failing, a simple weakness of willpower. And this, right here, is where the whole story flips on its head. We're taught to see weight gain as some kind of character flaw, an issue of being greedy and lazy. But the reality, as Dr. Mason explains it, it's not about character at all. It's biology, driven by these powerful chemical signals inside our own bodies. And just think about it for a second. Dr. Mason has worked with CEOs, elite athletes, even other doctors. These are people with incredible discipline in every other part of their lives. These are not lazy people, yet they struggle with their weight. That right there proves the problem is so much deeper than just self-control. So if it's not about willpower, what's actually in the driver's seat? What's running the show? The answer, in a word, is hormones. We really underestimate just how powerful these little chemical messengers are. They're not just influencing our mood. They are the puppet masters. They dictate our hunger, they drive our cravings, and, crucially, they're the ones telling our body whether to burn the energy we eat or to store it away as fat. So let's meet the main character in this whole hormonal story, a hormone called insulin. Dr. Mason calls it the primary hormone of obesity for a really simple reason. Without high levels of insulin, our fat cells literally cannot store fat. It is the gatekeeper. So how does this one hormone have such a huge impact on our weight? Well, think of insulin as a switch. The wrong kinds of foods flip that switch directly into fat storage mode. And the data here is just staggering. One study followed teenagers for 8 years. What did they find? The ones with the highest insulin levels had a 36 times, not 36%, 36 times greater risk of becoming obese. That connection is just undeniable. Dr. Mason has this perfect analogy for this. He says fighting a powerful food craving is like trying to hold your breath. I mean, you can do it for a little while, right? But sooner or later, your body's chemical drive to just breathe becomes completely overwhelming. It's not a failure of will. It's just biology. So those intense cravings, they aren't a moral failure. They are a biological drive, a deep, hardwired need to chase those feel-good brain chemicals like dopamine and serotonin. And here's the real kicker. The modern food industry knows this. They scientifically engineer processed foods with the absolute perfect storm of sugar, salt, and fat to hijack this system and keep you hooked. And what this does is create a really vicious cycle. See, you eat foods that are high in sugar and processed carbs. Your insulin spikes up to deal with it all. That insulin then tells your body, hey, store this energy as fat. And because that energy is now locked away, your brain thinks you're starving. So it makes you feel tired and hungry, craving more of the exact same food that started the whole problem. Now, here's the part that is so important to get. Insulin doesn't just store the fat, it locks the door behind it. It makes that energy unavailable for you to actually use. This is why you can eat a huge pasta dinner and feel totally wiped out an hour later. Your body is technically full of energy, but your cells can't get to it. Now, over time, this whole cycle leads to something called insulin resistance. And here's a pretty simple way to think about it. All that sugar and all those seed oils, they start to basically clog up or even damage the little doorways, the insulin receptors, on your muscle and liver cells. So those cells become deaf to insulin signal. But guess what? Your fat cells can still hear that signal loud and clear, which means pretty much all the extra energy you eat goes straight into storage. Okay, so if the problem is hormonal, then the solution has got to be hormonal too. And this brings us to a completely different way of thinking about food, one that's all about managing your hormones, not just obsessively counting calories. This is the logical question that always comes up, right? So, if calories don't matter, can I just eat 5,000 calories of pure butter and lose weight? Well, the answer is a bit more interesting than that. The truth is, it's actually really, really hard to eat that many calories on a diet that keeps your insulin low, because that kind of diet naturally fixes your appetite. And that is the real magic here. The goal isn't to fight your hunger with sheer willpower, to white knuckle it through another diet. The goal is to create a hormonal state where hunger isn't a constant battle. When your insulin is low, your body can finally tap into its own fat stores for fuel. Your cravings just fade away. And you find you naturally eat less because you actually feel full, satisfied, and energized. So the focus completely shifts. It's no longer about counting every single calorie. Instead, it's about controlling the types of food that send your insulin through the roof. And that really comes down to these four things: sugar, highly processed foods, refined carbs, and those industrial seed oils. This new way of eating also needs a new way to measure success. Forget the scale. Honestly, it can be so misleading. Instead, Dr. Mason suggests focusing on a much better indicator of actual fat loss, your waist circumference. And for the most accurate reading, measure it first thing in the morning while you're lying flat on your back, right at your belly button. This is what a lot of people call a non-scale victory, and it's so important. When you eat this way, your body starts to heal and rebuild. You could be losing inches of fat, while at the same time gaining healthy muscle and even improving your bone density. So the number on the scale might stay the same or even go up a bit, but your clothes are getting looser and your health is getting dramatically better. So we'll leave you with this final thought. What if this whole time, weight loss hasn't been a battle of your willpower, but just a matter of science? By understanding your hormones, you can finally stop fighting this impossible war against your own body and start working with it. You can reframe the whole thing not as some kind of moral failure, but as a scientific puzzle that you finally have the pieces to solve.